What's up and welcome back. I'm John Stark from MacTheMovieGuy.com, your favorite blind film critic, and today I'm gonna get freaky with some freaky tales. This is actually being distributed by Lionsgate. It was at the 2025 Sundance Film Festival and is being released on April 4th. I got an advanced screening of Freaky Tales. And this is directed by Ryan Fleck and Anna Boden, the directorial team behind Half Nelson. It's kind of a funny story, and Captain Marvel. So this film is absolutely not like any of those films. That went in a completely different direction for this. It's an anthology series set in 1987 Oakland with a broad ensemble cast telling four intertwining stories centered around music and movies and sports and, honestly, racism, just to be totally honest. I mean, it's not one of the things that the IMDb plot summary wants to mention, but there's a lot of it in here, so it's worth mentioning. Kind of feels like it should be the fourth pillar of the movie, but so yeah. What did I think about Freaky Tales? Well, click like and subscribe, and you'll find out. If you don't click like and subscribe, I don't know what happens. It just, I don't know. It sends you into another video of SpongeBob doing something. I don't know. It's weird. Anyway, this is, like I said, it's a broad ensemble. So you have Pedro Pascal, Ben Mendelssohn. We've got Too Short, Jay Ellis, Keir Gilchrist, Tom Hanks actually does pop up in this movie, which is kind of hilarious. He's kind of excellent too for his very short amount of screen time. It has like a smattering of people across the stories. Not everybody that I knew, not everybody I'm familiar with, but some people you may be more familiar with than me. But obviously, I gravitated more towards Pedro. Can't wait for him to save save the last of us. But it follows all of these different intertwining stories and all these different people who encounter different challenges. I kind of like the fourth act the best. The sleepy story that's centered around basketball and breaking into athletes' homes, which is something that still happens today. Like, that's still a thing, which I wonder if it was inspired by, true life events, or if they took this from 1987. Have we been doing this since 1987? I guess is my question. But Ryan Fleck and Anna Boden haven't really done anything that's like this before. Even their TV show stuff is really pretty straightforward. It's like Billions and Masters of the Air, and this feels outside of their element. This feels like they're taking a giant step into the Boots Riley direction. I was getting vibes of I'm a Virgo, and I was getting, Sorry to Bother You. I was being reminded of the just various anthology films like Tales from the Hood. Uh, it, Believe it or not, I just kept thinking of other things while I was like, oh yeah, wow, I should watch that again. Oh yeah, I wonder if that has audio description, you know? And it's, it has sort of that old school charm. It even has a little bit of Do the Right Thing. Like it felt a little bit like Do the Right Thing to me, where we're catching the vibe of a city, and race is very much like an important part of the city, and this discourse between different uh, you know ethnic cultures within the city is prevalent, and ends up being at least part of heavily part of one of the stories, if not sort of interwoven throughout. So yeah, I mean, it's it felt like it was tipping its hat to a lot of things that came before it, but it still was trying to do its own thing and tell its own unique stories, um, including one with a guy who uses his fists to pay the bills. Um, but man, I love the Tom Hanks moment. The Tom Hanks moment made me so happy. First of all, I love the fact that they were just talking about like random Tom Hanks movies leading up to it. I had already seen the cast list, and I knew he was coming in at some point because they kept referencing and talking about some of his older work, like Splash. Um, and finally, when he pops up, it does not disappoint. I thought he leaned into the part that he's been given in this really well. And I mean, you could say it's him, but it's also not. Like it's this version of him, and it's I don't know. It was really good. So uh, Ben Mendelsohn does a really good job of playing a character you won't like. That was fun. Uh, yeah, it's got a strong ensemble to it, and like I said, it has a lot of people in there that I'm not as familiar with. Um, Jay Ellis has an opportunity to stand out in the end because they gave him an excellent role. So, like I said, he kind of controls the fourth story, both the emotional arc and sort of the payoff to it. So, he ended up standing out to me. Too Short just kind of does narration. He's the narrator of the story, so he is only heard a little bit. But I think you should get freaky. I think you should get Freaky Tales. Is it perfect? That's the thing about anthology movies. That was the thing that I had about Kinds of Kindness, which probably is the most notable anthology movie I can think of that came out in 2024, is that I liked the first two stories, but not the third. So that's the thing about anthology movies, is that when you put them together, every single story has to slap, and they have to slap the same level. Otherwise, you get sort of this uneven feeling where, like, oh no, bam, 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 bam. So, while I liked the final act the most, I did think the other acts were okay. Like, I mean, it closed well for me. I was most intrigued by the final part of the film, but that doesn't mean that there weren't other parts that were engaging. I thought kind of the first part started off promising, and we moved into the middle of the film, and I was kind of that's like, okay, well, this is still fine. We're fine, and then it kind of ended strong. So, um, yeah, that's is it the best? No, I think anthology movies are really hard to say, like, this is the best movie of the year. I think it's hard to do that because you have to make sure that every single one of your stories is fire, like absolute perfect, all the way around. And even something I reviewed recently, um, the Ballad of Buster Scruggs, uh, arguably has I mean, it's mostly peaks coming out of the Coen brothers, but it does have maybe a slight valley or two. So yeah, it's and it's a lot easier to tune out of an anthology movie and say, well, I don't like this scene because it's not necessarily connected as well to the other stories, or and to just kind of be like, well, this is my bathroom break moment, you know, and choose it that way than it is some other films where you're just sort of watching the narrative through and it just sort of it lags. In some ways, anthology movies are actually better for us as humans because it gives us that break and it gives us the option to decide what about these movies we like. Because then if you are looking for a moment to break from a lengthy project, this is not that long of a movie. This is like an hour 40 something, maybe an hour and 40. Yeah. So, but like for longer movies, it gives you an opportunity to be like, well, this is my least favorite of the of the stories. So this will be my bathroom break story. um, Whereas sometimes with movies, you're waiting for that scene that you just don't like as much, or the action sequence that goes on forever, or I don't know, whatever it is. But some movies you can never just put down either because they're perfect. Freaky Tales is a film like I can see why it's being released. It's not being given an awards push. But it is being given a pre-screen push. This is the first time Lionsgate has given me anything to pre-screen, which means that they have immense amount of you know belief that this movie is worth telling audiences about. I didn't even get an awards thing from them last year. They had small things like these. I had to watch that myself. Like they didn't even submit that for awards consideration. So they submitted Freaky Tales, and I'm glad they did. I think Ryan Fleck and Anna Boden are incredibly competent directors, and I think, I mean, Half Nelson is a perfect example of how we get these indie filmmakers, and they come in with this sort of bright and shining debut film, and it's about finding out what works for them and giving them the right support and the right kind of money. Captain Marvel, I think it works for some people and doesn't work for other people. And obviously that's an example of handing them a lot of money and saying, here, go do something that's unlike anything else you've ever done and direct this big Marvel movie. But it's kind of a funny story, is actually kind of a good movie, you know? So that feels more up their alley. And they've remained a really solid directing team this whole time. And I think Freaky Tales, while it feels like a huge step away from something like Half Nelson, it's still a nice show of their abilities. It has this energy through it that makes me feel like that they chose this specific place and time for a reason. I don't need to know much about them to know that for some reason 1987 Oakland likely means something to them, and the story means something to them, and they've just found a creative way of telling it. It's violent, it's funny, it's well acted, and for the most part I enjoyed it. And yeah, as with any anthology, it has stories that you will like more than others, and that is true. But I think I'm gonna remember Freaky Tales at the end of the year, just not as maybe like a best picture contender. So I'm gonna give Freaky Tales a B plus. I think you should check out Freaky Tales. Get freaky. Anyway, yeah, I had fun. So I think you will too. And let me know what you think in the comments. And I will see you guys on the other side.